Bill looked at me looking at people, and after class he asked me what I was thinking about, and I told him. He listened, and he nodded and made affirmation sounds. When I had finished, his face changed into a serious dog face. Do you always think this much, Charlie? Is that bad? I just wanted someone to tell me the truth. Not necessarily. It's just that sometimes people use thought to not participate in life. Is that bad? Yes. I think I participate, though. Don't you think I am? Well, are you dancing at these dances? I'm not a very good dancer. Are you going on dates? Well, I don't have a car, and even if I did, I can't drive because I'm 15. And anyway, I haven't met a girl I like except for Sam, but I'm too young for her, and she would always have to drive, which I don't think is fair. Bill smiled and continued asking me questions. Slowly, he got to problems at home. And I told him about the boy who makes mixtapes hitting my sister because my sister only told me not to tell mom or dad about it, so I figured I could tell Bill. He got this very serious look on his face after I told him, and he said something to me that I don't think I will ever forget this semester or ever. Charlie, we accept the love we think we deserve. I just stood there, quiet. Bill patted my shoulder and gave me a new book to read. He told me everything was going to be okay. I usually walk home from school because it makes me feel like I've earned it. What I mean is that I want to be able to tell my kids that I walked to school like my grandparents did in the old days. It's odd that I'm planning this considering I've never had a date, but I guess that makes sense. It usually takes me an extra hour or so to walk as I'm opposed to taking the bus, but it's worth it when the weather is nice and cool like it was today. When I got home, my sister was sitting on a chair. My mom and dad were standing in front of her, and I knew that Bill had called home and told them. And I felt terrible. It was all my fault. My sister was crying. My mom was very, very quiet. My dad did all the talking. He said that my sister was not allowed to see the boy who hit her anymore. He was going to have a talk with the boy's parents tonight. My sister then said it was all her fault, that she was provoking him, but my dad said it was no excuse. But I love him. I had never seen my sister cry that much. No, you don't. I hate you. No, you don't. My dad can be very calm sometimes. He's my whole world. Don't say that about anyone ever again, not even me. That was my mom. My mom chooses her battles carefully. I can tell you one thing about my family. When my mom does say something, she always gets her way. And this time was no exception. My sister stopped crying immediately. After that, my dad gave my sister a rare kiss on the forehead. Then he left the house, got in his Oldsmobile, and drove away. I thought he was probably going to talk to the boy's parents. I felt very sorry for them. His parents, I mean, because my dad doesn't lose fights. He just doesn't. My mom then went into the kitchen to make my sister's favorite thing to eat, and my sister looked at me. I hate you. My sister said it different than she said it to my dad. She meant it with me. She really did. I love you, was all I could say in return. You're a freak, you know that? You've always been a freak. Everyone says so. They always have. I'm not trying to be. Then I turned around and walked to my room and closed the door and put my head under the pillow and let the quiet put things where they're supposed to be. The Perks of Being a Wallflower by Chbosky, which was published in 1999, making this year its 20-year anniversary, tells the story of Charlie in his freshman year of high school. And he tells his story in a series of letters that are written to an unnamed recipient. Charlie has a rough start to the beginning of his freshman year, having lost one of his friends to suicide in 8th grade. And he kind of feels like he has no place in school until he meets a friend named Patrick in his shop class. And he starts to hang out with Patrick and his stepsister Sam, and soon he finds a group of friends who are supportive and weird and outcasts, kind of just like him. And everything seems to start turning around. He even gets his first girlfriend. The But then life gets a little bit more complicated, as it often does. Um, the dating thing gets complicated. The Sam and Patrick of it all gets complicated. And even Charlie starts to have some own issues of with his mental health. So there's a lot going on with this ninth grader's life right now. And really, it's just gritty and timeless, and I think it's truly representative of the experience of a marginalized teenager. I remember being in ninth grade when I read it, and it sort of changed my life and how I thought about books. The Perks of Being a Wallflower is definitely a coming of age sort of story. So I would definitely recommend it for people who like to hear stories about people overcoming adversity in their young adulthood. As far as related titles, I have to recommend The Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger. It is a classic. It's another coming of age story, and it's told in the same sort of stream of consciousness way that Charlie speaks in, but by its own protagonist, Holden Caulfield. Holden is escaping the prep school life, and in a sort of weird series of events, finds himself back home in New York City. And that doesn't necessarily change his perspective on the world around him, but certainly expands it. Please Don't Kill the Freshman by Zoe Trope was published in 2004. This one's a little bit harder to find. I don't even think it's in print anymore, but I know you can find it through third parties on Amazon and things like that. But it's actually a memoir about Zoe Trope, told in diary entries, recounting her life in Portland and her unique group of sort of misfit friends, just like Charlie's. It explores issues that were pretty challenging for its time: sexuality, gender identity, really adolescence in general, and how everything sort of intersects and makes everything complicated. Zoe, like Charlie and Holden, kind of writes in a stream of consciousness and doesn't always stick to the typical conventions of written prose English, but I think that makes it even better and maybe a little bit more authentic. I told Sam and Patrick about this, and they both got very quiet. Sam said that she used to go out with Dave for a while before she got into punk music. Patrick said he had heard about the party. I wasn't surprised that he did, because it kind of became a legend. At least that's what I've heard when I tell some kids who my older brother is. When the police came, they found my brother asleep on the roof. Nobody knows how he got there. My sister was making out in the laundry room with some senior. She was a freshman at the time. A lot of parents came to the house then to pick up their kids, and a lot of the girls were crying and throwing up. Most of the boys had run away by this point. My brother got in big trouble, and my sister was given a serious talk by my parents about bad influences. And that was that. The boy named Dave is a senior now. He plays on the football team. He's a wide receiver. I watched the end of the game when Dave caught a touchdown thrown from Brad. It ended up winning the game for our school, and people went crazy in the stands because we won the game. But all I could think about was that party. I thought about it quiet for a long time. Then I looked over to Sam. He raped her, didn't he? She just nodded. I couldn't tell if she was sad or just knew more things than me. We should tell someone, shouldn't we? Sam just shook her head this time. She then explained about all the things you have to go through to prove it, especially in high school when the boy and girl are popular and still in love. The next day at the homecoming dance, I saw them dancing together, Dave and his girl, and I got really mad. Kind of scared me how mad I got. Thought about walking up to Dave and really hurting him, like maybe I should have really hurt Sean. And I think I would have, but Sam saw me and put her arm around my shoulder like she does. She calmed me down, and I guess I'm glad she did, because I think I would have gotten even madder if I started hitting Dave and his girl stopped me because she loved him. I think I would have gotten even madder about that. So I decided to do the next best thing and let the air out of Dave's tires. Sam knew which was his car. There's a feeling I had that Friday night after the homecoming game that I don't know if I'll ever be able to describe, except to say that it's warm. Sam and Patrick drove to the party that night, and I sat in the middle of Sam's pickup truck. Sam loves her pickup truck because I think it reminds her of her dad. The feeling I had happened when Sam told Patrick to find a station on the radio. And he kept getting commercials and a really bad song about love that had the word baby in it. Then more commercials. And finally, he found this really amazing song about this boy, and we all got quiet. Sam tapped her hand on the steering wheel. Patrick held his hand outside the car and made airwaves, and I just sat between them. After the song finished, I said something. I feel infinite. And Sam and Patrick looked at me like it was the greatest thing they had ever heard, because the song was that great and because we really all paid attention to it. 5 minutes of a lifetime were truly spent. We felt young in a good way. I have since bought the record, and I would tell you what it is, but truthfully, it's not the same unless you're driving to your first real party and you're sitting in the middle seat of a pickup truck with two nice people when it starts to rain.